Luba says, please, could you explain the meaning of phrasal verbs live on, live through, live out, and live over? And I think that this is a great question. Now, I want to start by saying that I don't know what live over means. I can't think of a meaning. When I hear that, I think, what is that? What does that mean? Other than something like, I live physically over something. I live over a waterfall, or somehow my house is over a waterfall. I live over a waterfall. That's the only thing I can think of, the physical meaning of being over something. I look down and I see canoes flying off the waterfall because they're shooting action movies. Every single action movie in the 20-aughts has a canoe going off the waterfall. Every single one. You can go back and check. They all have it. And my house is right above that, and so I get to see the little canoes going pew, pew, the little boats going off. And they always survive, which is amazing, because I put a lot of rocks down there. Somehow they make it. Anyway, the question is, live on, live through, live out. So let's talk about these. Live on. This is used in a couple of different ways. This is used to talk about the things that sustain us in one way or another. That could be, though, physical survival, emotional nourishment, or maybe some sort of intellectual nourishment, right? So we often say, I can live on rice and beans. I can live on rice and beans while I get through this difficult time. So if you hear rice and beans, that suggests, well, rice and beans are pretty cheap, right, usually. So if you're living on rice and beans, you're deliberately living close to a small or zero budget, either to save money, to pay off debt, or because you don't have money in either case. So you'll hear that expression, living on rice and beans. That expression is focusing on the physical nourishment that we get from food. To live on that means I survive with that stuff coming into my mouth, right, and nothing else. So I survive on that, and you'll hear sometimes survive on. I think I could survive on mangoes and Fruit Loops alone, and coffee. So if I just had mangoes, Fruit Loops, and coffee, I could survive. I think I could live on mangoes, Fruit Loops, and coffee. Absolutely, yeah, of course, right? Or I don't think I could live on Fruit Loops alone. I need more. I need more than Fruit Loops to survive. Okay, so that's the live on thing. But also there's a less physical meaning. And that might be something like, I could live on the nourishment of something intellectual. We need something spiritual. People talk about their religion as something they live on, right? I can't just live on the idea that I'm all alone in the world and nothing means anything. I need meaning in my life. That gives me something I can live on intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. So it can mean that other sort of thing too, okay? And I think there's an expression. Man cannot live on bread alone. Is that what it is? Something like that. I could be wrong, but that sounds about right. Who said that? I don't know. But I feel like that's rattling around in my head, and somebody said it, but I can't remember who it was. Anyway, that would mean that we need more than just that as people, as humans. To be sane, to survive, we need some sort of spiritual, intellectual nourishment. Okay. How about live through? Well, to live through something, what does through mean? To live through something would be to pass through it, right? Well, that suggests survival. So that suggests some sort of trauma, some sort of difficulty, some sort of terrible thing that happened. Yeah, exactly. I've lived through a lot. That's not just saying I've lived through many events, like getting the newspaper outside, or petting my dog, or buying bananas at the supermarket. When someone says, I've lived through a lot, they're not talking about buying bananas at the supermarket, or petting their dog, or getting the newspaper. They're talking about a divorce, the death of a loved one, a war, famine, some sort of thing, a loss of a job, economic disaster. These terrible things that happen that give us stress and pain, suffering. And it's not that those things always would cause us to die, but it's just that they are difficult. So if I say I lived through a divorce, that doesn't mean that, a divorce might kill you. It's sort of like, that's a difficult thing that I've passed through in my life. So often when we say live through, we're not just talking about survival from something that could cause us to die, although you could say that too. So in the same way that we say live on in a physical sense, I live on Cheerios alone. No, what I say? Fruit Loops. I live on Fruit Loops alone. Well, we have the non-physical or the less physical meaning as well. And that's the same with live through. You lived through a car accident. You survived the car accident. Great. You live through a divorce. You live through some sort of personal tragedy. That's more like difficulty in general, struggle in general. Okay? So, and we say that, by the way, to encourage people. You'll live through it. You'll live through it, this difficult time. What about then live out? Now, I've seen this used in a couple of different ways. One way it's used is to talk about a kind of imagination land that you're inside of, to live out a fantasy of some kind, or a dream that you always had, something you always wanted to do as a child that you never did. So in my later years, I really was able to live out some of my childhood dreams. That means you're able to take those dreams and you're able to put them into practice in your life, to live them out. That means to carry them out, to do them. Skydiving, riding camels on the moon, whatever it is, okay? So I hope to someday live out my dream of living on the moon. And that's not a joke. I actually want to live on the moon. I plan to live on the moon. And I hope someday that I can live that dream out. So I want to do that dream. I want to enact that dream. I want to make that dream happen in real life. I want to live it out. We also use live out in a kind of dreary way. Often at the end of someone's life, we say live out their days. So it's as though someone has reached an end point of some kind, but not the end of their life, and then they find a final resting place, and then that's where they spend the rest of their lives until they die. Oh, she lived out the rest of her days in a very wonderful nursing home. And she was visited by her relatives once a year, right? To live out your days, or to live out the remainder of your life, or the rest of your life, would be where you are, is the way it's a little bit, but where you are when you die from some previous point. Basically, that's what it means. I'd like to live out my days on the moon, quite frankly. That's where I'd like to live out the rest of my days, maybe starting around age 160 until the age of 260. I'd like to live out the rest of my days on the moon. So, I hope that makes sense. Live over, again, I'm not quite sure about, but at least these three phrasal verbs I hope are clear. It's a very good question from Luba. Thanks for the question. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. That would be deeply and sincerely appreciated. Also, don't forget to subscribe, which is also important if you want to see future videos and live streams, and also very important, check out my full courses. Those courses are on sale in the links in the description.